You're never gonna believe this. A couple weeks ago, I get up, do the whole morning ritual, which involves taking the boss of the operation for a walk. He looks up at me and says, "You realize, we've never featured the car that invented the whole design craze of four-door coupes." Now, I didn't believe Kumo at that point, so I went into the office, I checked out all 900 episodes. Sure enough, we've never featured a CLS ever on the show. So he gets the Mercedes-Benz folks on the horn, has them send over this. Here we are today, shooting a CLS, but this is one that has that newfangled six-cylinder with this integrated starter, generator, alternator, whatever they call it, that we featured in that E53 we drove together. So let's try a hybrid, all-wheel drive, still I feel wrongly badged AMG, but this one with a roof. Let's start this out with a recap of what 53 means in Mercedes speak. Inline six-cylinder, 3 liters. 429 horsepower comes in at 6,100 RPM. 384 pounds of torque, that comes in at 1,800 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 5,800 RPM. With me thus far? Then we need to strap on a starter alternator somewhere around here. That in turn drives an electric compressor, so a sort of newfangled supercharger, and that adds an additional 21 horsepower and 184 pounds of torque. And I really shouldn't say additional, that is from zero. So that is the electrification, and it gives the time for the engine to spool up more boost from the turbocharger. This personality of the way this engine delivers power is better suited to this very beautiful sedan than that convertible. A more factual way to describe this that's also very inside baseball. Have you ever had the opportunity to drive a perfectly sorted, like mid-80s 535 IS? With a manual, of course. How beautifully the way that six-cylinder delivered power in that very light car, that is what the personality and power delivery of this setup in this car is reminiscent of. You may have noticed in the E53 episode that I was really taken by the system, and I specifically call this a system, not an engine, because it's trying to do something incredibly hard. Simultaneously increase output while increasing efficiency and reducing the complexity of the parts involved. Very difficult. And what's happened here is by reducing the accessory drive, taking the whole thing out, it's made the output higher, but also the electrical system is 4 times the power of a traditional serial production car, which in turn, all of the accessories that are attached to it draw less power, so even the electrical accessories are more efficiently run. So even when the car left, I was really taken by this architecture to the point where I've been up at night, Kumo will tell you this, doing more research on where this is going and the potential. And I found that it's not just cars that benefit from this. The Boeing 787 has a very similar thought process in reducing complexity, increasing efficiency. It's not just the composite construction of those planes. So when you think of a commercial airliner, they too have accessory drives that come off of the jet engines, but they are way more complex in that there's hydraulics, there's a hot air bleed system that drives the de-icing of the wing in flight, all that kind of stuff. There's way more stuff like stabilizers and landing gear that run off that. But what Boeing has done with the 787 architecture is take all of that stuff off and replaced it with effectively 2 generators. I'm way oversimplifying here. And those 2 generators create an electrical system that is 5 times the power, not 4 times the power, 5 times the power, 1.45 megawatts. I feel like I'm talking back to the future here. And that powers everything in the plane. So instead of that power-sucking hot air bleed system for the de-icing, what they do is they've created an opportunity for a new de-icing, which is effectively like a heat blanket on the wings, which more efficiently de-ice the wings that pull from this electrical system that has 5 times the power. It's mind-boggling what these different systems do and how the architecture, there's so much in common. So I'm really interested to see what happens here, but also in the aviation world. Back to Portuguese Bend to understand driving dynamics in the CLS. And the big thing we have to understand here is the wheelbase is the same as an E-Class. And you look at this thing and you think, oh my God, that's a CLS. Really, if I were to take the body panels off of it, it's an E-Class, which means 4-link, multi-link in the front, 5-link in the back, everything else set up the same. But over just broken, terrible pavement like this, you feel the same type of car. And let's actually put it into my own brew, where I made the suspension stiffer, but still the same power delivery, and really get on it a bit more here. Ugh! Oh, that's interesting. Much more composed than that convertible coming through here. What's changed is the length. So as we come around to go roller coaster, please don't try this at home. But God, it's so much fun. It's an additional 3 inches in length in this thing. So this is more akin to the feeling of driving an S-Class, not an E-Class. Turns out AMG is not the only beneficiary of this system architecture underneath the hood of a new Mercedes. There is a CLS 450 on offer. That one has the same inline 3-liter 6-cylinder engine. That is a good thing. It also inherits the integrated starter generator that comes out of this, but the output is different because it's not an AMG. It's 362 horsepower. That comes in at 5,500 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,100 RPM. It's almost funny to say that. Then the torque is 369. That comes in at 1,600 RPM, which is lower than this. That's interesting. And stays flat all the way up to 4,000 RPM. Okay, there's nobody around here as we overlook a very cloudy Terranea Bay, and we need to discuss that transmission. I'm gonna dig deep here. Remember, this is a torque converter transmission, but it's a speed shift, they call it, so it's faster shift. So let's dig deeper a bit. And you do notice a difference in this transmission from the 9-speed it was in the E-Class Coupe we drove last year. It's crisper shifts, but what you're noticing is it's almost imperceptible. The speed is so much different over the box standard 9-speed. Granted, is it something like a PDK? Not in any way, shape, or form, but it does transform your experience in, I would argue, a luxury car. Yet here's where the 53 and 9-speed combo here works differently than the 400 9-speed combo in the coupe. I want to shift gears in this. Even though this is a luxury car, this and that E53 cab, I deliberately set up my home brew to be manual shifting, even around town. I'd be interested. Those of you that own a 53, do you set up the manual shifts, or do you let the car shift itself? Yes, it is entirely possible that I'm referring back to the E53 episode a wee bit too much in this CLS 53 episode. But here I can't resist the temptation again, because we have another round of the options game that is going to be A, unique, and B, filled with a couple of firsts. But you and I are professionals at this point, so let's start. 2019 AMG CLS 53 Coupe, $79,900. To that, we get into our firsts. Polar white paint for free. Then we add MB text, not leather, in an $80,000 car for free. I'm not complaining because it is for free. Vielen Dank. Then, this is a gift. Ash gray natural grain wood, no charge. And may I say, far nicer than any black piano finish. Then we move into something, another first. They give you money back. They give you $970 if you give them back the parking assist system. I'll take it, that's fine, I can park the car. Then we add 20-inch wheels for $750, and if you select these, one can select the high-performance summer tires for no charge. Again, vielen Dank. Then we add the AMG illuminated door sills. We saw that in E53. They are lovely for $350. Then we add a very important, let's just say, I wouldn't call this important, I would call this compulsory. If you buy a car like this, one needs the AMG performance exhaust for $1,250. And my favorite option, red seat belts. And then they know I'm a cheapskate and they know they're going after me. I think they want me to keep this one because the red seat belts are free. Then we add to that an acoustic comfort package. It has nothing to do with the stereo. It's insulation on the windshield, cabin, and a heat absorbing membrane in a car. $1,100. Then the AMG night package, we've seen that in other AMGs. The black finish here, and you really can't see the high gloss there because the wheels are filthy, but I'm not cleaning them for the 5th time this week. We've had so much rain. Then we move on to the driver assistance package. Pretty much every Mercedes you and I have ever had on this show has had the driver assistance package. That's the Distronic Plus, all like the fancy radar systems. $2,250. Then we add destination and delivery, $995, for a total retail price of $86,275 for a stunningly beautiful car that does not have leather. I won't tell you what. I won't tell you where we are, but this guy in a Camaro RS, he's got 300 horsepower. He wants to drag race me. And this is one of these things where you just, with great power comes great responsibility. I know I've got both gas and electric power and could probably mop the floor with his ass, so we'll just let him go. Let's discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly. And clearly, we are going to have to start with what is so blatantly obvious, and that is the stunning natural grain ash wood fitted to this car. Now, if you'd explained to me over the phone, black interior with a satin finish wood with a really long porous grain, I'd say, yeah, that would look very good. But here it's helped with this organic shape that runs the width of the dash, and then it runs the length of the door panel. This really dank. And then that's further helped. You know I had to do this. Red seat belts, repeated in the steering wheel here. I know that's a Porsche thing. And repeated in the contrast stitch throughout the entire interior. Now the bad. Why on God's green earth was this car, this specific one, serial ending, I think 444, fitted with an only black interior? This is a classically beautiful car. Why can't we do a classically beautiful color on the interior? At least break it up. I've seen pictures of this with like a two-tone red and black. I've seen it with a lighter color interior. Yes, this one has contrast, but black, it's a crime in such a beautiful car. And then the ugly. This is special. I get you want these like serial gauges that work in all sorts of cars so it lowers the cost of production. And yes, you do get more functionality. But I'm not buying this thing for function, I'm buying this thing for beauty. So instead of all this like computer wizardry, how about we do this? Beautiful, analog, something that's timeless, but up here. Can you sort that out for me? So I was reading in the documentation with this car, there's some sort of like a sailing mode. Remember in the PDK Boxster, the 981, when we first drove it, you could literally pull the paddles back and it goes into neutral and the thing could sail. Here it's supposed to do it automatic, but here we are going downhill. I got my foot off the accelerator and it's still turning 2,500 RPM. You know what, let's try the comfort mode and see if it does it in comfort mode. And again, foot off the accelerator and it's not sailing. I don't know why. It's advertised to sail, but for some reason, maybe because I'm not a boater and don't like boats, maybe that's why it's not sailing. I'll get back to you on this. One of the aspects of my job that I love the most is the people I've met over the years. And not just the people at the car companies, I've met some great people through the show. Like, for example, there is a guy in Saudi Arabia, Amr. I feel like I've become a brother with this guy because I've known him for like 9-10 years. We've had debates about cars. We love a lot of the same stuff. Like, he loves Lotus, he loves SRTs, he loves AMGs, he loves Cadillacs, and of course he loves Dave Leone. But where we disagree, and he is wrong, is the E65 7 Series. If you got to explain to me why a car looks the way it does, that's just bad design. So when the CLS came out, you didn't explain it to nobody, because that was just a beautiful car. It broke with any Mercedes-Benz design tradition, and everyone was like, wow, that's pretty cool, to the point where it created a trend, four-door coupes. But then the second generation, they put lines in places they didn't need lines, and I felt it went from a beautiful car, classically beautiful, to just handsome. And now we're back to classically beautiful, because they took the lines out. There are, let's just say, R-rated hips, and proportions are back. And once again, it is the car people look at and say, wow, that's achingly beautiful. But apparently there are more Amros out there, because I put this on Instagram when I got it, and there were a couple of people saying they liked the second gen better. So let's do some scientific research here. Which generation CLS do you like the best? Eins, zwei, oder drei? And Amro does not get a vote. That is the wrong kind of electrification. This, I can't believe I'm saying this, this is the right kind of electrification, to the point where I've been obsessed with it. Here's an example. I'm going to get on a little bit harder, and the instantaneous torque, you need to think about where it's coming from. Most hybrids, like the terrible C-Max, that not just a terrible car to drive, but a terrible car to look at. Hopefully I've not been unclear. This does not have all the componentry of that vehicle. That has a couple of electric motors, that has a gas engine, gas tank, battery. This has a gas engine, a gas tank, a transmission, and just the starter generator. That's it. There's no additional electric motor like that godforsaken thing, and there's no additional complexity, which is why the handoff is seamless in this thing. So the secret is less really is more in electrification, at least in the performance application of it. That being the case, I do need to circle back to some of the money here, just not on an options game. This is an $87,000 car. One could have one for $80,000. But is that too much? Like, think about this for a minute. The average price of a car nowadays is $35,000 US. Put aside whether I agree with that or not, $35,000 US. A friend of mine's looking to get a new JL, and he was telling me that the one he was pricing was 55 grand, and it wasn't even fully loaded. So in a world of $35,000 average crossovers and $55,000 Jeeps, is an $87,000 stunningly beautiful car with a futuristic system that much money? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV on Word, MotoManTV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I'm going to say it again. I'm very excited to see what this thing can be tuned to, because I'm still up at night doing research on other applications of this type of system. Until we see you next time, be später.